Welcome to the Portal Waves. My name is Diz, aka David Zamet. Let's get on with the show with the news, the views, the reviews, and interviews. Making news. Kathleen Kennedy stepping down is still making the rounds amongst the Star Wars fans across the net. It's still making news, the ups and downs, and just to let you know. Making more news. No news is good news when it comes to Starfighter. That's pretty safe to say, and I'm glad there's no news at the moment. It's a bit too early anyway, but there's no news with Starfighter. That is coming out in 2027. It's the new big Star Wars film. Speaking of next Star Wars film, whether it's going to be big or not, to the more news, the Mandalorian Grogu trailer has still not dropped. No next or final or original trailer has been dropped. It's really just creeping into the release date of this film. What's happening, I don't know, but anyway, that's making news. And to more news, if you want to see some great AI. Now, it's not about the AI. It's actually about the stories. It's about how the actual stories put together. There is a brand new fan film that has been released 36 hours ago on the Tales Untold YouTube channel. It's called Star Wars Inside the Death Star During Its Destruction. This is amazing. More about what I think coming up shortly, but that is making news as well. If you want to see a fan film that's amazing, that's the one. Another one. Anyway, so that's the news for this time around. Let's get into views. Views is my story idea that I have. I accept the story for what it is. I'm being taken on a journey, whether it's good or bad. I'm taken on this journey into Star Wars, and let's just go with it. Now, I know that sounds like, well, we shouldn't just accept anything. Well, yes, you don't have to accept it, but I think the whole Star Wars journey is great, up or down. It's still Star Wars. Anyway, so this time around, I'm actually going to mention more about fan films, and I'm going to say yet again, I reckon the movies in general are in serious trouble. Star Wars is just one of the AI sort of type of little short fan films being made with AI, and they are amazing. Not just because the AI is great and the sound of the voices is great. It's the stories that are really coming across like really well. This, especially with Star Wars, especially two or three of them. And the third one I've come across today is this one called Star Wars Inside Death Star During Destruction on Tales Untold YouTube channel. I did discover this about, just as it came out. I've just held back in releasing a video. This is an 11 out of 10. 11 out of 10. The music and the way it's edited and the way the camera shots have been chosen is just great. I would say the only slight little thing that I'll pick on, but it still comes across in conveying what that person was sort of speaking at the time. And the person I'm referring to is the Emperor in this particular fan film. His voice sounded a little bit held back, if you were to say that. But that being said, his sound of his voice was still there. It just conveyed a certain style, which I sort of took on. I'm telling you right now, movies are in danger. Movies in general are in danger. The actual studios, big studios, want you to go to the cinema to experience movies, which I like to go to the cinema personally because it's the experience, it's great, it's fun on a big screen, whatever. But this being having such a great access on YouTube is going to cause people to stay at home. And if you ask me, it is actually a more convenient thing to do is to stay home and watch it. And, it has its less going out, which is a bit of an issue, I think, with the mental health state of mind of being closed all the time. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy my downtime, but I enjoy sort of going out there too. But this fan film, just from the minute go, from the explosions. Now, this is not my story idea, but this is a story I'm saying to you that I don't even need to create a story idea. This is perfect. This is an 11 out of 10 I've just given. It's my third 11 out of 10, I think, in this month, and it's all fan films on YouTube. It's just insane. We are really coming close to a full-length feature. It could be being rendered right now, I don't know. But I'll keep my eyes out for that one. And I think there's no more to say about that. Just check it out. It's unbelievable. But just don't take in the AI, take in the story, how the music is working, what they're talking about, how it's just so good. It doesn't make other Star Wars things that are official, like the canon Star Wars, bad. Well, partly it's making, it's really contesting them. But at the same time, it's just excelling at a high rate in its storytelling. That's me. Anyway, that's my views for this time around. Let's get into reviews. Reviews this time around is going to be something I've got unique, and it's still sealed. Classic Star Wars fan here. It's still sealed. This here is an official Rogue One Empire magazine, still sealed in its pack. Look at that. Rogue One, when that came out, Empire magazine, you may know of this. And it also did come with a free Star Wars mag, which this is Empire's. I think it's more a collaboration. I can't tell you what's in it because I haven't opened it. It's the rock and the hard place when you have something that you've got sealed, you just don't know what's really inside. But anyway, this is essentially the Rogue One Empire magazine. It's absolutely gonna stay in this plastic thing for a very long time. And it came with a free mag, another Empire mag. I think more about the general sort of going on to Star Wars at that time. And this here, my friend, I'm going to give a 9 out of 10. I do love it. It's a 9 only because I've not opened it and I'd like to know what's inside. So, I've got to give room for that possible one not being there. But Rogue One was definitely one of my favourite Star Wars film entries or story entries, whatever you like. That's the reviews. Let's get now into interviews. Interviews is the comments that I'm getting on YouTube and via my last particular video. So send in your comments, please. Your comments, your questions, whatever you like, to my YouTube channel. I'll either express them or I will answer them. I'm not Mr. Trivia Man. I do know a lot about Star Wars, but I'm not, a trivia champion with Star Wars. Being older, maybe I've got a bit more knowledge of here, there, and wherever. But yeah, so just send me your comments and questions. That'd be great. Anyway, Michael from Werribee South, which is a part of Melbourne, he's one of the favourites. He loves asking questions. He's sent in a couple of questions already. So let's answer these. To what extent did Kennedy's public focus on representative storytelling alienate the core fan base? And was the subsequent branding of critical fans as toxic a valid defense or a way to deflect from poor writing? Okay, I've reviewed his questions already. This is really opinion based. look, I just think, you know, we cannot know the answer to this question without asking Kathleen Kennedy herself, or even now a representative from Lucasfilm. That could be Filoni or Brennan, who are the new presidents. But especially we'd have to ask this question to Kennedy. But I think there was a whole lot of ideas happening, how to captivate the audience, therefore making money from the audience. I think new ideas were a little bit too new for some people. That's fans and non-fans who went to see Star Wars. I don't know if it's I don't know if a lot of the Star Wars that we got in this last 10 years is poor writing. I think there is stories that are a bit more bolder and epic that could have been told, but the stories we've got so far is where we've been taken. I mean, way back in the day, even from the original trilogy, Lucas was criticised heavily for the weird dialogue that it was being expressed. Even by some of the actors, they thought, "What's going on here? This is so bizarre." If you not recall, Mark Hamill saying that a number of times, but it worked. Even with some of the dialogue that came out of the prequels, it was really getting a lot of criticism. And now, these days, where social media and is just high up on the agenda of people getting information, and so the sequels are really finding themselves in a really hot water base, whether you like them or not. But anyway, that's the answer to that question. Really, you'd have to ask, Kathleen Kennedy, if she really did not sort of bring on what the fans really wanted to that question. Anyway, the next question: why did so many high-profile projects, including those of Phil Lord and Chris Miller, Josh Trank, Colin Trevorrow, and Stephen Daldry, result in firings of creative differences under Kennedy's watch? Is this a sign of quality of strong quality control, or a failure to vet talent correctly? I think the whole issue with this is announcing what is coming up too early in the piece. I think Star Wars has enough sell point, especially 10 years ago, that you could have delayed any talk about projects being made. Yes, it does cause a little bit of promotion to the project coming out, but it also causes an expectation that that Star Wars fans have continued to sort of say, what happened to this, what happened to that, why did you write it like this, why did you have Boba Fett become this, or why did you have no Darth Vader film, why, when, how. It just causes, amongst Star Wars community fans, too many questions. I think revealing the actual director, the writer, the story should be released way later in the piece. It should definitely have a good rhythm of being released. Like, you should be constantly saying, well, this is coming out next, la la la. But it should be definite. And then everything else in that should be kept tight-lipped, because once information comes out, it ruins the movie going experience. And it also is, Star Wars 10 years ago had a stronger sell point. Now it has been diminished, I must admit, from a number of reasons. Let's not get into those. But yeah, so I'd say, look, to a certain degree, quality control would have been detected, but also talent also maybe a factor. But I think announcing people or stories way early on the piece is the problem, and that to me is the only way to answer that question, coming from my opinion. The next question from Michael from Werribee South is, how can Kennedy's leadership be considered successful when the sequel trilogy was launched without a predefined story arc for all three films, leading to a narrative inconsistency seen between The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker? Well, that is true. You know, could it be considered successful when that, there was no sort of pre-story idea? But I remember before The Force Awakens was coming out, the amount of chatter, like this is about a year or half or 2 years before, even earlier than that, YouTubers would really sort of express what they would love to see and hear. And, they were, and not just Star Wars ones, they were movie type people, and they were sort of, expressing all these ideas. I think Disney, Lucasfilm, got a wind of this and started listening to what that was out there, and sort of took that on as part of the idea. And part of the ideas out there was like, we could have a character film. We could have, we could have a director for each different film. We could have a different writer. We could, you could, for the next film, you could do this, you could do that. I think this is what has caused the confusion. Is Disney is just, and the YouTubers have sort of mixed the match, and it's just, the clarity of what you want, which was technically the owner, which is Disney Lucasfilm at that time, should have just had their own thought process. This is going to be it, and that's it. Obviously, confiding into George Lucas and how certain things work and don't work, I would have then done that myself. But yeah, so I reckon that the area of The Last Jedi to The Rise of Skywalker, which is episode 8 to episode 9, there is a big jump. But if you also do remember, A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, all of a sudden, back then, not now, back then, Darth Vader became humanized, and we discovered that he was the father of Luke Skywalker. I mean, that was a shock that either could have worked or not worked, and it really worked. And the fact that the Emperor was found to be the grandfather of Rey was, yes, a last-minute decision, but it's a similar type of shock. It just didn't work with a lot of people. I thought it worked because of the strength of Rey and where all the strength came from, and that explains it. In my humble opinion, I've always said that it would have been great to have Emperor Palpatine be Anakin's dad, because to sort of understand why he's so strong and stuff like that. But that's just where we are right now in the story. Is where we are right now. Just take it on as that. It's the story. Unless you have $4 to $5 billion American, buy the franchise and start writing. Start creating, and then and at that point you will start. Wait a minute, how can we get this money back? Because that's quite a lot of money. I don't think a lot of people out there have billions of dollars like that just to throw around to sort of say, let's make this type of film, let's make that. You got to think of things, how things can work to keep that money. Keeping money is a big challenge in life. Anyway, so let's go into the next question. And Michael from Werribee South once again is asking, so was the box office failure of Solo truly a result of Star Wars fatigue, as Kennedy claimed, or was it a direct consequence of the backlash from The Last Jedi just 5 minutes prior? I'll say it was a backlash from the Last Jedi, and I also would think, I also say that I don't think people really wanted or desired, that the Star Wars fans wanted a Han Solo film. I'll also say the actor, the lead actor who played, was it Ehrenreich, I think it was, who played Han Solo, he was great. He was absolutely great. But it was, it was just not selling to the people. But I do think the failure, technically failure, which is not a failure to most movies, what Solo made, but the failure of Solo being less than $1 billion film, which is what Solo became worldwide, I think it was a bit of backlash from The Last Jedi, because at that point, the Star Wars universe in the fans really transformed. It went from excited to what the hell's going on. And I know that because I was at Star Wars Celebration Orlando, and that was for The Last Jedi. Whole that was for the whole lead up to that, and the excitement among Star Wars fans. Like, I was in the absolute intensity of the crowd, and we talked Star Wars like there was no tomorrow. It was just the only thing we talked about, and that was like for 19 hours on and off. We talked about other stuff, but the excitement was through the roof. Anyway, so more questions from Michael from Werribee South is, how do you reconcile Kennedy's 2019 claim that there were no 800-page novels or comics to draw from when the expanded universe Legends contain hundreds of books and comics that Disney had recently decanonized? Now, this is interesting. I think it's not being explained properly by Kathleen Kennedy. Now, when you see The Lord of the Rings and when you see Harry Potter, there's an actual, story from novels, and that's the story. So they've recreated that into the movie. With these Star Wars, Legends or EU or whatever, all these stories, there's bunches of stories that contradict each other because there's so many types of stories of where things could have gone, or what, from characters or story or, planets, anything. And it's all interesting, but it really doesn't have, the story. So you can only really cherry pick from all this expanded universe or Legends, and you can create different things happening in the actual canon. You could create a movie from some of these extended universe or Legends books or comics. You could quite easily, but I think Disney and I personally would want to create something original that you would know to create. And so there was no really official story of Star Wars besides what George Lucas was talking about of what could have happened in 7, 8, and 9 with his ideas, that I don't know if it has been, pushed to the point of an exact script. I don't know. I know he had a very strong outline that could have been used, but it is all about economics, I think, at the end of the day. And I hate to say this, I'm not Mr. Moneyman. I'd rather have a great story than thinking about how much money this is going to make. But with such a big purchase, you've got to think of how you can make your money back to a degree. Now, you may make your money back with the hardcore. The hardcore fan community is not what made Star Wars massive. It was the phenomenon of the hardcore Star Wars fan community with the rest of the world almost. It was a phenomenon. Out of control. I'm talking about 1977 here. But anyway, that to me is, you can only really cherry pick, in my opinion, from all these things. You can create movies. It's just, they're just not, they're not strong enough to create a movie that, because these legend comic books and novels have only you need to show a sell power about it. It has only really come across to, certain parts of the Star Wars fan community. It wasn't a phenomenon in and around the Star Wars community. You need something that is going to sort of say, you know what, let's make this into a movie. But, I love a lot of the stuff that's in the EU. I especially love the fan films at the moment. It's on YouTube. It's amazing. Anyway, and I think this is the final question. By shifting Star Wars primarily to a streaming service, Disney Plus, has Kennedy permanently diminished the event status of the franchise, making it just another piece of content rather than a cinematic phenomenon? I agree. Streaming services is great. We all love to stay at home. I can't be bothered going out. I watch it on there. I don't think it's just Star Wars. I think it's happening with a lot of things out there. I think streaming services without Kennedy's control or whoever's control, it is sort of a rock and a hard place. People want to see it at home, but then to make real money or substantial money, you really need to have it in the cinema. And to get that sort of experience as a person, go to the cinema. It is movies, entertainment has been diminished rapidly. Music or movies, it's become one of the highest paid things in the world. And it's going down and down and down each year, each decade. I remember you had to go to the actual record store to buy the actual vinyl for the new release and waited till the release. And that's how music was sold and made and stuff like that. But I will say that a lot of the behind the scene people, their money pockets were quite deep, and I think there was a bit of overpricing to the people buying entertainment. But yeah, streaming services are great to watch, but they don't really make money for future things to really take off, in my opinion. Anyway, please subscribe to this channel, The Force Awayz. I'm here 3 to 4 times a week with the news, the views, the reviews, and interviews. And like and share this, agree or don't agree with me, but I'm here because I am The Force Awayz, along with you guys out there. And until next time, my friends, keep rocking.